Incredible story of a grandma, left to care for cats. I discovered an unexpected life-changing situation. Martha's heart swelled with love every time she stepped into her garden. It was more than a patch of land, it was a sanctuary. Blooms splashed color against the faded wooden fence. Brilliant reds and soft pinks of her cherished roses danced alongside wildflowers that painted the ground like a watercolor masterpiece. Each morning, she'd take a moment, hands on her hips, to admire the magic she tended over the years. But even deeper than her flowers were the gentle purrs of her feral cat family. They were her little warriors against loneliness, their soft fur and warm eyes wrapping around her heart like a beloved old quilt. As she often did, Martha sipped her tea while watching the cats play, recalling how her late husband used to joke that they were the real masters of the house. But that comfort was threatened now. The whispers of rising property taxes rippled through the neighborhood, hitting harder than a summer storm. The threat looming just beyond her gate was a slick developer, promising luxury apartments and fancy boutiques in place of their comforting homes. Every word from the city planner's mouth felt like a dagger to Martha's soul. Change is growth, he proclaimed, flashing a smile bright enough to blind anyone who dared to challenge him. But Martha felt a fire igniting within her. She wouldn't sit back and let this happen. The thought of losing the faces she saw daily, the sweet barbecues, the neighborhood potlucks, filled her with dread. She gathered her friends, rallying them to unite against the storm brewing above their heads. As the warm summer sun bathed them in golden light, Martha conjured visions of standing shoulder to shoulder, fighting for the roots they all held dear. But then, just as hope bloomed, in walked Mark. Her estranged son, dressed in crisp lines that screamed success but felt so foreign. "Mom," he began, tensions rising like the heat on the pavement, "I've got an idea." The audacity of his suggestion was like a slap, a choice that whispered of shiny new things and turned their community into mere investments. Memories of his childhood, filled with laughter and warmth, crashed against the desert of resentment she had built between them. She felt a righteous anger clash with the longing to hug the little boy he once was. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening," she heard someone say in the back of her mind, breaking the tension. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Martha pushed forward into the maelstrom of emotions pooling between them like a stormy sea. In the town hall that night, as she stepped onto the stage, a hush fell over the crowd. Mark's eyes searched hers, a silent plea. She took a breath, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders, the cats echoing her inner strife. They weren't just fighting for property, they were battling for family, connection, a shared past that tied them to this place. What would she do? Would she risk everything to save their neighborhood, or would that truth drive her son further away? Martha stood there, thrust into the spotlight, torn between community and kinship. What would she choose? The answer hovered in the air, palpable and urgent, as the crowd awaited her voice. The fight was on. What if saving this home meant losing her son? Martha's heart raced as she faced the crowd. All eyes were glued to her, waiting for her to take a stand. Voices around her faded into a dull roar as the weight of the moment pressed down like a leaden blanket. Would she betray the collective heart of her community for a spark of hope to reconnect with Mark? "Tonight," she began, her voice trembling at first, "we stand here not just as neighbors, but as family." The words hung in the air, echoing with a bittersweet familiarity. She felt a warmth at her back, glancing briefly at her friends who were nodding with encouragement. But just then, she caught sight of Mark, his expression shifting as hope flickered within the lines of his tailored suit. Martha drew strength from the garden she cherished, imagining the cats prancing through the marigolds, their freedom a reminder of what she was fighting for. The developer's promise of change stung. Who were these newcomers who could sweep in and erase years of laughter, milestones, and memories? "The cats may roam wild, but so do we," she continued, emboldened by her thoughts. "We are not just 5 houses deep, we are decades of traditions, family cookouts, holidays. Our lives are entwined here. Her voice rose as she recalled the countless moments that danced through her mind. Yes, change can be good, but not when it means replacing what makes our lives rich. She felt a swell of unity among her neighbors. The murmuring crowd seemed to pulse with her, their heartbeats sinking to hers. Yet in the edge of her vision, she could still see Mark. That familiar mix of pride and worry played on his face, a reflection of the very conflicts that had driven them apart. As the clapping and cheers surged around her, a nagging question lingered: would Mark ever see her perspective, the way she embraced the life they had built together, or would he forever remain on the other side of the divide? I won't let my garden be uprooted. I won't let decades of community be washed away for a new set of skyscrapers, she declared, fire burning bright in her chest. But then came doubt. What if he saw this as yet another of her, harping on the past? Would he think she was being unreasonable, clinging to an outdated dream? She took a breath, glancing at him again. The distance between them felt as wide as the ocean. Mark, I want you to understand, she said, her voice softening, this isn't just about the land, it's about family, legacy. It's about holding on to who we are. A hush fell over the crowd again as she laid bare her heart, vulnerability spilling from her like sunlight through leaves. What if opening up meant risking both community and the fragile connection with her son? In the silence, a wavering voice suddenly rose from the back. Martha. It was Ed, an elderly neighbor who could hardly stand. What about those of us who struggle every day just to pay our bills? What about us? The question struck hard, like lightning hitting a tree. Martha looked at Ed, swallowing the sudden lump in her throat. This was more than a location, it was an entire way of life fueling her neighbors' hopes and fears. How could she gather their dreams and weave them into a single tapestry that proved to Mark they were worth fighting for? As she stood there, balancing her love for the past with her fear of the future, the question lingered heavy in the air. Could she find a way to bridge this divide before everything she loved slipped through her fingers? And was it even possible to unite their dreams while confronting the hard truth they all faced? Martha's heart pounded as she stood amidst the crowd, her mind racing to find words that could resonate not only with her neighbors but with Mark too. She could see concern and curiosity flickering across his face. Ed's question echoed in her thoughts, growing louder. What about those who struggled? It wasn't just about preserving a neighborhood, it was about sustaining lives woven into the fabric of this place. Ed, I hear you, she began, her voice steadier now. This isn't just about the cats or the flowers. It's about what's possible when we band together. About fighting for every neighbor who needs this home as much as I do. The crowd began to murmur in agreement, a wave of shared sentiment spilling into the space between them. We deserve a future that remembers our past while embracing today's struggles. Mark's expression softened just a bit, the tension in his shoulders easing. Could he see it too? The glimmers of hope intermingled with the fear and frustration. Martha pressed on, fueled by the connection her community had always shared. Let us think big. What if we protect this garden by creating something better? By getting creative and innovating? We can't just resist change, we need to make change work for us. The crowd buzzed with newfound energy, and Martha saw heads nodding. She saw sparks of hope igniting among her neighbors, and it pushed her forward. The developers wanted to revise their blueprint, she could choose to rewrite her vision. Maybe they could collectively invest in plans that included low-cost housing mixed with green spaces, a space where generations could grow, share and thrive. Together we can present a plan that respects our needs, a place where working families don't have to pay exorbitant rents just to live here. We deserve a community that nurtures instead of displaces. She cried, her emotions surging through her like wildflowers breaking through the cracks of concrete. For the first time, Martha felt the desperation of her neighbors shifting to determination. Hands were raised, and voices began to chime in with ideas, solutions. The energy in the crowd shifted from one of sorrow to one of strength. A small child waved a drawing of a community garden, while another neighbor proposed creating a community fund for repairs to aging homes. Each suggestion seemed to build upon the last, a collective heartbeat echoing with every thought voiced. Among the chaos, Martha locked eyes with Mark. She could see something almost fierce in him now, as he leaned forward, intrigued. Maybe he was starting to understand her vision, the value of this place. Maybe, but then Ed's voice rang out again, cutting through the cheer. Martha, what if we're rejected? What if this change isn't what we hope for? His voice trembled, a fear mirrored in the eyes of others around her. Martha inhaled sharply, the weight of uncertainty pressing down once again. Hope danced tantalizingly close, yet risks loomed large. She was faced with a moment that could either join their dreams together or unfold a fracture that widened with every rejected plan. Failure isn't only an option, she replied quietly, gathering courage. It's part of the journey. But we won't know until we try. Who else will fight for us if we don't? At that moment, Martha felt a shift inside herself, a deep awareness that she was not just fighting for her community, but for her relationship with Mark too. The stakes were higher now. How could she forge ahead, keeping both her loved ones and neighbors close? As the crowd began to chant her name, Martha stood at the crossroads, ready to face the uncertain path ahead. But would her efforts be enough to bridge the gap from Mark and their community, or would they find themselves lost in a fight that could change everything they knew? The energy in the air buzzed, heavy with anticipation. Faces in the crowd glowed with a mix of hope and anxiety, reminiscent of sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Martha's heartbeat echoed in her ears, a reminder of the stakes involved, and she felt the pull of her own uncertainty balance against the burgeoning strength of her neighbors. With each raised hand and enthusiastic suggestion, she could see a tapestry of possibility weaving itself before her, a vision that could be more than just words. Yet, the doubts lingered like shadows, refusing to be ignored. Could they truly sustain this momentum? As the chants of her name rang out, a mixture of excitement and fear swirled inside her. Martha! Martha! The crowd's voice grew louder, igniting something deep within her. She took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of her community surge like a current through her veins. They were hungry for change. But what if change didn't come? What if her efforts left them all disappointed? Martha! This time it was Mark's voice, slicing through the cacophony, pulling her focus. He stepped forward, from the shadows into the light of the crowd, his eyes intense and questioning. What do you need from me? The simple question spun in her mind. What did she need? Beyond the calls for action and plans of gardens bursting with vegetables, she couldn't shake the feeling that she needed Mark by her side. They had faced so much together. But could he handle this fight? A part of her feared that if he stayed, the burden of their future would rest solely on her shoulders. I need you to believe, she replied, her voice cutting through her own turmoil. I need you to look at our future and not just see the risks, but the potential. We can shape something better than what we've had. Together. Mark nodded slowly, but uncertainty clouded his expression. His hesitation felt palpable and Martha's heart ached. She knew he carried his own fears, but she needed him to see past them. Our home, our community depends on it, she urged. The tension wasn't just in the air, it was deep within the crowd, hovering like smoke. Ed's voice rose again, urgent, but don't we need a plan? We need something solid or we risk everything. Martha felt her stomach twist. Again, doubt seeped into her resolve. What would a plan even look like? Just words and sketches on paper or actual solutions that could bind them together? Glancing at the sketches being waved by a few eager kids, a spark ignited in her mind. Let us brainstorm right here, right now, she declared. Let us shape this plan together. The crowd buzzed once more, voices overlapping, ideas colliding to forge a new path. Someone suggested a community meeting, another brought forth a vision of shared spaces for meetings and workshops where every voice could be heard. Martha felt electricity in the air, her vision cutting through the fog of fear. They could create a mini-revolution right in their neighborhood. However, deep down, a question reverberated. Was her vision strong enough to unite them all? As ideas flowed, Martha turned her gaze to Mark once again, desperately searching for reassurance. She saw a flicker of acceptance in his eyes, and her heart soared, but could it be enough to sway the others who still held doubts? Just then, a voice broke through, but what if they don't listen? Murmured a middle-aged woman from the back, her brow furrowed in concern. Martha aimed her gaze toward her, feeling the weight of the crowd's collective worry, and she realized this fight was more than about the land. It was about the very heart of their community and the ties that bound them, even if those ties felt fragile right now. "I believe they will," Martha proclaimed, her voice steady despite the tremor of fear that lingered beneath. "But only if we stand together, united." There was a long moment of silence, and then the murmur of voices began to rise, unsure but hopeful. She felt the energy shift again, like a living wave rolling through the crowd, but as hope began to unfurl, Martha felt that familiar gnawing worry at the back of her mind. What if it all came crashing down? What if they couldn't break through? She didn't have the answers yet, but at that moment, they weren't just fighting for a garden, they were fighting for each other. With renewed determination, she shouted, "Let us keep this momentum going. Let us meet tomorrow, let us bring everyone in on this." The crowd roared in agreement, and Martha felt buoyed by their energy. But deep inside, the question lingered: could they truly forge a future together, or would the weight of their dreams pull them under? As the cheers and laughter surrounded her, Martha knew one thing for sure: she was no longer standing alone on this path. But the real challenge loomed, waiting just beyond the horizon. Would they rise together? Or would they falter? The sun dipped low in the sky, painting the scene with strokes of orange and pink. The crowd slowly began to disperse, buzzing with energy yet tinged with uncertainty. Martha stood at the front, her heart racing, as people drifted away, some still sharing ideas, others lost in thought as they clutched their sketches tightly. Mark lingered nearby, watching her with a mix of admiration and concern. She could see the struggle etched on his face, a mirror to her own. As the last few stragglers waved goodbye, she made her way to him, feeling the weight of both their worlds pressing down. "Did you mean what you said?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The question hung in the air, thick with the potential of an answer not yet spoken. "Yes," she replied, her words flowing more easy than the storm in her mind. "I meant it. Together we can spark something new." She could see the flicker of hope in his eyes, but it was still shackled by doubt. "I can't do this alone, and I don't want to." He stepped closer, vulnerability shining through his usual steadiness. "What if we fail?" Martha reached for his hand, threading her fingers through his. "But what if we don't?" His silence spoke volumes. She could feel the tension shift, slowly melting under her determination. They shared this battle, but she needed him wholly: his belief, his heart, and his unwavering support. The two of them left the crowd behind, their pace punctuated by little moments of shared laughter, voices low and intimate. The evening air was cool against their skin, carrying the whispers of the community they were trying to uplift. Hours slipped by unnoticed, and soon they found themselves at a small diner, the kind that felt like home. As they settled into their booth, the world outside faded, and they were cocooned in their own space. "Remember when we thought about starting a community garden?" Mark said, a small smile creeping onto his face as he highlighted the nostalgia. Martha chuckled, the warmth of memory washing over her. "I still have that napkin with our plans scribbled all over it." Then, the thought of how innocent their hopes had once been collided with the seriousness of her current ambitions. "It seems like a lifetime ago. Look at us now." He glanced around, his tone turning somber. "This is more than just a garden, Martha. It's our lives." "I know," she replied. "It's exactly what I'm scared of. What if we can't make it happen? Then we'll figure it out. One step at a time." His steady gaze melted some of her worries away. Just then, their waitress arrived, bringing life back into the moment with a cheerful greeting and an energy that felt comforting. After they placed their orders, Martha's mind swirled with thoughts of the people outside the diner. Each face she'd seen earlier lingered in her thoughts. They had shared their fears, their dreams, but now she felt a deeper responsibility. She wanted this for them all. "What if we held a gathering tomorrow?" she suggested, excitement bubbling to the surface. "One where everyone brings their ideas, their fears, everything. It could be a safe space." Mark nodded, an infectious grin spreading across his face. "Yes. Let us make it happen." With that, an idea shifted from mere thought to action, and Martha felt an electric pulse of excitement coursing through her. She was tapping into a current of unity and belief, and it ignited her passion. As they settled their bill and prepared to leave, a flicker of concern tugged at her. What if they think we're just dreaming? Dreaming is the first step to changing the world. At least we'll be doing it together, Mark said, his voice steady as they stepped into the cool night. But as they walked side by side, her heart raced once more. What if the community didn't just need their dreams? What if they wanted more than Martha and Mark could offer? The gravity of what lay ahead pressed on her. They were on the brink of something, but in that very moment, could they truly give people the vision they craved? As they stepped back into the dimly lit evening, a question hung in the air between them, daring to be answered. Could they inspire belief when doubt was just as strong? The next morning dawned with a hint of briskness in the air, the kind that made Martha feel alive and ready. She buzzed around her small living room, transforming it into a space that pulsed with possibility. The couch was pushed aside, chairs rearranged, and colorful throws draped artfully to invite creativity. But as the clock ticked nearer to the gathering time, a fresh wave of anxiety surged through her. What if no one came? What if they came but didn't feel safe enough to share? Each thought sunk like a stone in her stomach, dragging her confidence down. Mark had promised to be there early, but even his reassuring presence was enough to quiet the swarming doubts. When the doorbell rang, Martha felt her heart leap. It was Mark, a steaming cup of coffee in hand and a smile that held warmth against her brewing storm. Ready? More or less, she breathed out, forcing a grin that could barely disguise her nervousness. How do I look? Like a leader, he joked, lifting the coffee jokingly like a trophy. This is it. We're on the verge of something big. The first few guests arrived, shyly stepping through the door. There was Gerald, a retired school teacher with a passion for storytelling, Lucy, a novice artist with sketches tucked under her arm, and Naomi, a local baker whose cookies had charmed every corner of the community. They shuffled in, exchanging timid smiles that held traces of hope. Martha's heart raced. She watched as people mingled, their initial apprehension slowly giving way to laughter and chatter, igniting a flame of connection in the room. As she glanced at Mark, she caught his eye, and for a moment, the knot of anxiety loosened. It was happening, the beginning of their vision. Thank you all for coming, Martha began, her voice steadying with each word. Today, we're not just sharing ideas. We're creating a space to dream and grow together. Every idea counts, no matter how big or small. The room, once flickering with uncertainty, began to hum with spirited conversation. Gerald stood up, sharing his dream of an intergenerational storytelling event to bridge gaps between youth and the elderly. Lucy jumped in, her eyes lighting up as she envisioned the colorful banners they could create for the community garden. Each voice added to the tapestry unfolding in front of them, yet, even as excitement filled the air, Martha could feel the weight of unspoken fears lurking around the room. Every suggestion came with a question mark. What if we don't have the resources? What if no one supports us? It struck her how little support each of them had felt in their endeavors until now. The urge to uplift each other became a shared mission as unspoken fears transformed into shared courage. It was thrilling. After hours of discussion, the sunlight filtered through the windows, casting a warm glow over their gathered hopes. Mark scanned the room, visibly moved by the community that sprang to life before them. We're just getting started, he said, inspiring applause from their newfound friends, but as the gathering wound down and silence filled the room, Martha's heart sank a little again. There was still so much to do, so many questions unanswered. Would these connections hold when the challenges loomed? Just then, Naomi stepped forward, her hands shaky but her voice fierce. What do we do next? Martha's heart leapt at the challenge, a leap into the unknown that both terrified and exhilarated her. We keep the momentum going, she replied, her resolve hardening. We'll set dates, draw out plans, and make this community ours. She caught Mark's eye again, a flash of understanding passing between them. They had inspired hope, yes, but it was just the beginning. What if, at the end of this journey, the very community they hoped to uplift would reveal unexpected challenges that would catch them off guard? As they exchanged ideas and laughter, another wave of determination washed over Martha. This was more than a gathering, it was a catalyst for change. With every challenge they embraced ahead, what new revelations might surface? A new layer of uncertainty bubbled beneath the hopeful surface, daring her to look deeper than dreams alone. In the lingering warmth of enthusiasm, a question shimmered in the air. Would they be ready for the trials they were about to face? Martha glanced around the room, with golden sunlight spilling through the windows, revealing the faces of those she had invited. Each expression was a blend of hope and apprehension, the certainty of their dreams tangled in the uncertainty of the future. A sense of responsibility tugged at her heart as she realized she was no longer just leading a discussion, she was steering this fragile ship of aspirations through unpredictable waters. Mark clapped his hands to gather everyone's attention. All right folks, let's get practical. We need action steps, he said, his enthusiasm infectious. Let us break into small groups and brainstorm the next steps for each of your ideas. Martha watched as the guests nodded, a new energy igniting in their faces. Conversations split into clusters, laughter peppering their talks. Ideas popped like fireworks, each suggestion building upon the last, creating a rich tapestry of initiatives that could transform their community, but in the corner of her mind, doubt continued to gnaw. What if their ideas fell apart? What if the town didn't see the value in their efforts? She shook her head to dispel the whispers. Today was about possibility, a celebration of what could be. She joined a table where Gerald was outlining his storytelling event. As he spoke, Martha's admiration for him grew. Gerald's face glowed with passion, his eyes wide and animated. Imagine a day in the park. Kids listening to the wisdom of their grandparents, sharing tales that bind generations. We could really make an impact. Martha loved the vision but couldn't shake her worries. But how do we get people involved? I mean, what if no one shows up? She asked hesitantly. We create the excitement. He shot back, a grin spreading across his face. Let us make it a spectacle. We could have music, food, and posters everywhere. If people see how fun it looks, they'll want to come. His enthusiasm was a balm for her anxiety. She could see people gathering around their shared visions, each idea sparking new hope. What if they didn't just dream, but actually took a leap together? Her heart raced at the thought. Across the room, Lucy's laughter burst through the conversations. And we could make storytelling stages. Little corners where people can come and listen. Imagine colorful tents and cushions everywhere. The way she spoke made it sound possible, tangible. The group atmosphere buzzed, and suddenly, Martha felt a swell of courage. If these people believed, why shouldn't she? Let us organize. She exclaimed, her voice growing steadier. We'll create community flyers. We'll use social media to reach out, really tap into the creative pockets of this town. As they brainstormed, excitement crackled in the air. Ideas flowed like ink on paper, sketching out a vibrant picture of their future. But even in the heady enthusiasm, there was an undercurrent of vulnerability, a risk that loomed over every suggestion. An hour passed like a heartbeat, yet it felt monumental. They regrouped, and as ideas were shared, Martha noticed Gerald beside her, his brow furrowed in thought. What if we face opposition? He asked suddenly, his voice low enough to hint at the shadows behind them. What if people don't want this change? The room fell silent at his words. Martha's heart dropped. That was the looming truth they couldn't overlook. What if the community resisted? She could almost feel the weight of their shared dreams pressing down. Mark stepped in, his voice firm but compassionate. Change doesn't come easy. But think about the joy we'll bring. Let us not dwell on what could go wrong, but focus on what we can build together. His reassurances floated around the room, but doubt still simmered in Martha's chest. Their dreams were fragile, and the challenges they had yet to face were real. Yet amid the uncertainty, a flicker of determination ignited within her. This is what community was for, wasn't it? To stand strong together, to weather the storms? Just when she thought they were ready to move forward, an unexpected voice piped up from the back. What if someone actively tries to sabotage us? It was one of the more reserved guests who had barely spoken earlier, and the room shifted uncomfortably, as if the air had thickened. Martha felt all eyes on her. Could she reassure them? Could she lead them through not just the joys, but the tumultuous trials ahead? She took a deep breath, the warmth in her chest intensifying. Then we need to band together, lean on each other more. But what if their unity wasn't enough to weather the trials that lay ahead? The question lingered, hanging like an unspoken challenge. Would they bond together when the storms truly came? She looked around, determination and fear battling in her heart, realizing this was just the beginning of their journey. Martha took a moment to breathe deeply, looking around at the faces that were filled with uncertainty. Each voice, each idea carried weight, like fragile glass that could shatter at any moment. But alongside that unease was a deep-seated yearning, a shared pulse of hope that bound them together. Let us take that fear and turn it into something powerful, she said, her voice steady, striving to erase the tension that hung in the air. Let us commit to listening to everyone. And if we act as a united front, maybe we can counter any negativity. Mark nodded, assuring everyone with a smile. We are the change we want to see. Doubt is part of the journey, but it doesn't define us. This seemed to rally the group as little by little, their spirits lifted. Okay, so we'll tackle this head-on, Gerald said, his confidence rekindled. Let us have a meeting with the town council to present our ideas. We need their support, after all. And if they see the community backing us, they might be more inclined to agree. Martha felt a smile tease her lips. She could almost see their plan taking flight. Great idea. We can create a visual presentation with the volunteer shifts, community benefits, and all the fun activities we want to organize. Just then, Lucy clapped her hands, her eyes sparkling. And we can invite local businesses to contribute. Maybe they can sponsor us in exchange for advertising. It could be a win-win for everyone. The room buzzed with possibilities as new ideas fluttered from one person to another. There was laughter, a warmth that wrapped around Martha like a cozy blanket. This was their chance to shine, to show the town what they could do together. But doubt still lurked, darker and heavier in the corners of her mind. But what if we approach the council, and they shut us down? What if they don't get it? The fear slipped out before she could take it back, other voices murmuring in agreement. We'll frame our proposal around community needs and let them see how we fit in, Gerald countered, his expression fierce. This isn't just about us. It's about the town as a whole. We need to get people excited about this. Exactly. Chimed in Mark. We need a way to show our strength in numbers. If we can gather support from the community, we can rally together against any opposition. Martha felt her pulse quicken. She was amazed at how they had shifted the narrative from fear to empowerment. If they could unite the community behind their vision, if they could stand as a collective force, they could become a mighty engine for change. They spent the next hour finalizing details, gathering ideas, and sketching out a loose plan for outreach. It felt bold, vibrant, a leap from potential into possibility. As things started winding down, though, another wave of apprehension washed over Martha. I'm feeling hopeful, but I'm also scared. What if we face pushback, or worse, indifference? How do we deal with that? Gerald leaned closer, his gaze intense. Look, Martha, overcoming fears is part of growth. If we don't try, we'll never know, but if we do, we might just surprise ourselves. These words settled deep within her, resonating with a truth she could cling to. What if this small gathering of hopeful souls truly could create something beautiful? They could anchor themselves against the tides of fear. But then came the nagging thought, what if their spirit wasn't enough? As the meeting concluded, Mark announced, let us set our first public meeting for this Saturday. We'll invite the neighborhood. I want to see everyone there. The group went quiet, a mixture of excitement and anxiety swirling. That Saturday felt like a line drawn in the sand, a chance to step into the unknown, but to do it together. Would they be embraced by the community, or turn them away? Martha felt the thrill of anticipation choke her breath. Together, they had built momentum. But as she looked around once again, she couldn't shake the feeling that a storm was brewing. Hidden beneath their hopeful facade was the threat of uprooting. Would they be strong enough to weather it? After all, their journey was just beginning, and nothing was certain. Little did they know, the real challenge was lurking just around the corner, one that would test the very foundation of their dreams. What awaited them could either fuel their courage or extinguish the fire they had ignited. Saturday arrived, bright and buzzing with restless energy. The sun hung high in the sky, mirroring the anticipation in Martha's heart. She watched as people trickled into the community center, a mix of familiar faces and newcomers. Her stomach fluttered with a blend of excitement and anxiety. What if they weren't interested? What if they tossed their ideas aside like old newspapers? As voices grew louder, Martha stood at the front, glancing nervously at Mark and Gerald. They were busy adjusting the projector and setting up chairs, their focused actions calm amidst the rising tide of uncertainty. She took a deep breath, anchoring herself in the moment. This was their chance. "Are you ready?" Mark whispered, his excitement contagious. "Yeah," she replied, though her voice trembled slightly. She couldn't ignore the knots in her stomach. They were real, heavy. As the meeting began, the hall filled with a mosaic of emotions. Children laughed in the corner, parents chatted, and elders exchanged knowing glances. It felt alive. When it was finally her turn to speak, Martha's heart raced like a wild horse. She opened with a simple introduction, inviting everyone to cast aside their daily worries, if only for a moment. "Thank you all for coming today," she started, trying to suppress the fear bubbling just beneath her skin. "We're here to talk about an exciting project that could really unite our community." Slowly, she could feel the collective attention shifting, drawing them in like moths to a flame. The smiles encouraged her, and she continued, sharing their vision with all its blooming potential. As details emerged, gasps of surprise and laughter erupted in the back when Lucy shared her idea about local business sponsorships. After the presentation, the questions began. Some were supportive, others skeptical. She could feel herself tightening up as the harder questions rolled in, but Gerald remained firm, responding with confidence while Mark coaxed people into conversations. "What if people resist the changes you propose?" An older woman asked, her brow furrowed in worry. That struck a raw nerve. Martha's heart sank. "We plan on working to show everyone how this benefits us all," she replied, trying to sound resolute. "But we need your support to demonstrate that together we can make this something amazing." Laughter broke out again when Gerald offered a light-hearted joke about how gathering volunteers was a little like herding cats, but the underlying concern lingered. There were whispers of doubt, and as the meeting continued, Martha could sense the energy shifting. As she stepped down from the podium, a knot of uncertainty twisted in the pit of her stomach. Had she done enough? Had they convinced anyone? Mark joined her, leaning in close. "You did fantastic, Martha. We reached out, and they think. When people think, but what if they don't?" She interrupted, biting her lip. "What if we've just made things worse?" She stared at the ground, but he gently lifted her chin. "Let us focus on what we can control. Remember, this is just the beginning. They may need time to warm up." As conversations surged around them, Martha felt a flicker of hope. They were planting seeds today, even if she couldn't see them sprout right away. Then Lucy approached, her eyes bright. They loved the idea of the local businesses. "We explored an option to have an event next month. What do you think?" Those words worked like magic. Suddenly, the clouds of doubt began to dissipate. A shared sense of commitment rippled through her, urging her to believe. As they all cleaned up, a man from the back of the room approached. He looked serious but kind, and she felt a shiver of unease. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. Martha nodded, unease settling back in. Who was he? What did he want? She knew that the journey had just begun, but the real challenge lay ahead, and now, she sensed a weighty dilemma about to unfold. Would this conversation lead to deeper support, or would it be the first crack in their dreams? Martha's heart raced as she faced the man standing before her, his serious gaze fixed on her with an intensity that sent jolts of uncertainty through her. The silence hung between them, thick and heavy. Mark and Gerald exchanged uneasy glances from a distance, instinctively aware that this could be a turning point. "Hello, I'm Tom," the man finally said, extending a hand that Martha hesitated before shaking. "I heard about your meeting and the plans for the community. I'm here because I have significant concerns." Her stomach tightened. "Go on," she urged, trying to keep her voice steady. "I've lived here for decades. I've seen projects like this before. They promise you dreams, but rarely do they deliver. People come in, make big plans, and leave everyone behind when it doesn't suit them anymore." His words struck her like cold rain. "There's talk of investors looking at the land. What if they just want your ideas without giving you anything in return?" Martha felt the blood drain from her face. I thought we would be working together." The hope that had buoyed her all day began to falter under the weight of his skepticism. "We're a community. We have to trust one another." Tom narrowed his eyes, a hint of sympathy softening his features. "Trust, yes. But I'm afraid the stakes are higher than that. These developments alter the fabric of our lives. Until you have real backing and a concrete plan, I urge you to be cautious." He stepped back, offering a disheartening glance at the gathering crowd, full of chatter and energy. "What happens if those developers come in faster than you can rally the people behind you? They'll have the resources to sweep in and take this everything you care about away before anyone gets a say." The weight of his words hung in the air like a storm cloud. Martha felt her pulse quicken. Doubt echoed through her mind. If she didn't protect her vision, everything could slip like sand through her fingers. But just at that moment, another voice chimed in, cutting through the tension. It was Lucy, her colorful drawings under her arm, bursting with enthusiasm. "Martha, the kids are so excited. They want to sketch their ideas for the community. They're all in." Martha turned toward Lucy. The childlike excitement lit her heart, rekindling the fire inside her. "That's great. We can use that for our presentation and build momentum." Tom watched, still skeptical. "It's good to have excitement, but excitement isn't everything. You need to consider who controls this town, and how quickly things change. Just remember that." As Martha stood with Lucy, a wave of anger surged within her. "We may face challenges. But this community matters to all of us. We're gathering momentum, sharing our dreams. That's what fuels us." The crowd had begun to shift toward her again, curiosity piquing their interest. "What's next?" Someone called out, eager for the promise of collaboration she had unveiled. This was it. This was the moment that could turn everything around. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Let's transform the worries into action. We will create a petition to gather support right away, leverage our strength, and ensure everyone knows what's at stake. We'll go door to door if we have to." Mark stepped beside her, his presence bolstering her resolve. "We need specific plans, yes. We'll draft proposals that keep our ideas grounded and focused. We'll make sure everyone in this neighborhood understands what we are fighting for, our homes, our stories, our lives." Their voices united, echoing the hopes of so many as they began to rally around the fire of determination they had ignited. The crowd responded, nodding, raising hands, sharing thoughts, their focus unwavering. "Yes. Let's do this." Tom stood aside, an uneasy smile creeping onto his face. Maybe you have something here. Just don't let your hope blind you to the harsh realities." Martha faced him, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. "I understand, Tom. But hope changes things. We'll build a safety net and make connections that can't be severed easily. The more we unite, the stronger we'll become." In that moment, as warmth from the gathering wrapped around her, Martha felt her determination crystallizing. They would face whatever storm came their way together. They were threading their aspirations through the fabric of uncertainty, stitching a pattern of resistance, resilience, and hope. As the hour unfolded, she shared visions, brainstorming ideas that sprang forth like blossoms in spring. Each voice, each expression was a thread in their shared tapestry. Ideas flowed, enriched by hopes tempered with reality, all resonating deeply within her heart. The meeting fizzled out, but when it did, an electric buzz lingered, an ever-growing community embedded in her soul. They had ignited a spark together, a promise of what could be. The sun dipped low, casting a warm glow over their heads, shadows mingling with hope as familiarity settled back in. But with it came the conviction that not only would they fight for their future, but they would safeguard their community too. As Martha watched people leave, laughter and warm farewells echoing all around, she felt love swelling in her chest, not just for those who had gathered, but for the journey that lay ahead. They would rise, fiercely and collectively, to face every obstacle. Together, they were more than neighbors, they had become family. Her heart soared as she stepped outside, Mark by her side. "Whatever happens, we can handle it, can't we?" she asked, her voice steady with renewed strength. Mark grinned, a steely glint in his eye. "Absolutely. Together, we're unstoppable." Their journey was just beginning, and while they were still unknown to the winds of change, their hope was a fierce compass guiding them home. But before they could celebrate their victory, a call to arms rang out clear and bright. It was time to take action. Time to gather every fragment of every dream they held and wrap it into the movement they begun. Subscribing to the promise of a better tomorrow had never felt so crucial, and Martha was ready to blossom into everything they could create. They would not be silenced. They would rise as one. Now is the moment to take a stand. You need to subscribe now to join Martha and her community in this incredible journey toward transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others see this inspiring tale. Comment your thoughts, reactions, and feelings about this ending. It truly matters. And for the love of this uplifting movement, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to show your support.